wasn't aware at the time, but I was developing a very strong habit of eating ice cream. And then when she was born, it was like at the end of the day when I finally had a break, the ice cream became an emotional crutch. It was my reward for the day.
That is a snippet of what we're going to be discussing today. Hey there, Maureen here, founder of the Mindsight Academy, neuro coach to executives, leaders, entrepreneurs, and a neuro leadership trainer using insights from neuroscience to help you deliver results by learning to work smarter, be in control of your brain, manage yours and others' emotions, change behaviors, flourish, and exceed expectations. Welcome back to another episode of Lead to Excel podcast. I am so thrilled to be with you today because we have a special guest. But before we get into that, remember to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it, because it will help other people find it and give them the opportunity to understand how they can rewire their own brain to enable them achieve their goals. So without wasting any more time, grab your cup of coffee or your drink or whatever that might be. Put your feet up and listen in. I am excited. Today, I have a really special guest with us, and her name is Jill Cruz. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but you correct me in a second. But Jill is a board-certified nutrition? Jill is a board-certified nutrition specialist. So take that in for a second. You know what we're going to be talking about with that title. And there's another aspect of Jill which I like a lot, which we're going to really talk about later, which is very similar to what I do. So stay tuned. And guys, this is going to be amazing. So Jill, welcome to Lead to Excel podcast.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And it's Jill Cruz.
It's Cruz, right?
Cruz,
Thank you very much. Yeah. I knew, and that's why I said you're going to correct me. I should have asked you that before, but thank you. So Jill Cruz, yeah, it's really an honor and a privilege to have you with us, Jill. So can you please introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Okay, thank you for having me. So as Maureen said, I am a board-certified nutrition specialist, and my background is in functional medicine. And for many years, I worked in a functional medicine practice. And now, for the past 3 years, my focus has been solely on helping women over 40 who have struggled with yo-yo dieting to approach the entire weight loss process in a more holistic, healthy, sustainable, and even pleasurable way.
Wow. Weight loss, pleasurable. I can't wait to hear this. So, and this is why I really had to get you on here, because I definitely need it. I need to know how to lose weight, and really enjoy the process, because it has to be a lifestyle. But we'll come into that in a second. What is functional medicine?
Oh, great question. So functional medicine so the doctor that I was working with is an MD. So they're true medical doctors. And what they do is they use lab work, a lot of different types of labs, not only the typical blood work, but other types of lab work to dig deeper into root causes of health challenges. So it's not just, oh, okay, I have this set of symptoms, here's your diagnosis, then take this medication. It goes much deeper. So there's a lot of focus on lifestyle, diet, some supplement help as well. So it's if someone has really complex condition, functional medicine is a good place to go.
Interesting. Thanks for that. So how did you go from working in functional medicine to being a nutrition specialist? How did you make that change, I suppose?
Well, when I was working with this doctor, I was functioning as a board-certified nutrition specialist.
Right.
So my job was to help them implement those diet and lifestyle changes that they needed to do. And the clients were very complex with their conditions. And for years, I mean, I learned a ton. I really learned a lot. It was an amazing experience. But I always deep down wanted to help people lose weight. That was kind of the original reason that I went back to graduate school for nutrition. So after feeling like I really had a lot of knowledge and experience, I decided to kind of branch out and start my own practice. Now, the behind the scenes of all of this is that I myself had a lot of challenges with my own eating. So that's going.
Hold that thought a second, because that is just an interesting topic you're going to, because you told me about this. Now I'm going to kind of move back a bit, and we're going to come to this the story you're about to tell. But so tell us your background. What did you start off doing, and how did you then make the transition into being a nutrition specialist, or how you got here? So how did that come about, and why?
So I actually am maybe I don't meet a lot of women like me these days when I'm meeting various women at networking events and stuff. I actually was a stay-at-home mom for 11 years. So my original background was I lived in Japan for many, many years, and I spoke Japanese, and I ended up working at Japanese firms. And then after I got married, I became a mom, and I was home for 11 years. And from your passion and interest in the brain, I think would be interesting here. I became so mentally bored being a stay-at-home mom. I loved it, and I was so appreciative of being able to even do that. But as the years passed, I would get more and more bored, and I felt not that my brain was atrophying, but sometimes I wondered if it was. So I started researching nutrition and getting into cooking homemade foods. Like I learned how to make my own bread and how to make butter and ketchup and all these homemade kind of homesteading type things. And then I went into, I started to get my master's degree just because I thought, wow, this is where my passion lies. I mean, I couldn't stop talking about the body and nutrition and food and all of those things. So It was an easy transition into going to school because my brain needed stimulation.
But that's interesting though, because I was thinking while you're saying that if I was at home, I don't think it would be cooking that I would do on nutrition. I'll probably I'll probably do something, but it would not be food. It won't be cooking because I don't enjoy it at all. So well done for doing that. So, right. So then you went and did your master's, then came back into the workforce. And then why do you focus on weight loss specifically?
So early on in my while I was getting the degree, I started learning that many chronic health problems that many people have in the United States, and I'm sure in the UK and in Europe as well, could be attributed to really just not eating properly, not exercising enough, and a lot of times that would result in excess body fat, and then that would snowball into further medical conditions such as type 2 diabetes or heart disease or cancer. So I saw early on, I saw weight loss as one of the most powerful preventive measures for preventing other serious conditions. So that was my real motivation to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So now let's come to your story because I think it's so powerful. Let me not say anymore. So tell us, yes, that story.
So when I was pregnant with my first daughter, Belle, who's now 19, I started eating ice cream at night or in the day, whenever I wanted. And that just became, and in neuroscience, right, I was developing a habit. wasn't aware at the time, but I was developing a very strong habit of eating ice cream. And then when she was born, it was like at the end of the day when I finally had a break, the ice cream became an emotional crutch. It was my reward for the day. So it was every day, every night, just eating the ice cream and looking forward to it during the day. It's like, oh, I just can't wait till I'm alone and no one's bothering me and I can just eat this thing that's absolutely delicious. And I discovered this amazing flavor too that I was really addicted to. So I actually ate, it's shocking to say it and hear it, but I ate almost an entire pint of ice cream every night. And what I would do is I would go down, 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 and then I would leave just like a little layer on the bottom of the container, and I'd put it away. Okay, well, I didn't eat the whole thing. I ate most of it. And so I did that every night for 7 years.
Wow.
Which is shocking. And, I did gain weight and all of that. And it really just wasn't good for me. But I didn't think it was a problem. That was the interesting thing. I didn't realize that I was basically creating an addiction. Mm-hmm. And this is even before I entered graduate school for nutrition. But as I started studying nutrition, I was realizing, wait a minute, this is not good for my body. This isn't good for my mind. So I started to substitute. And I think I still to this day believe that substitution is an amazing strategy for changing the habits. But I still had that bad addiction. And that went on for years and years throughout grad school. As I'm working as a functional medicine nutritionist and in a practice, I still have this problem where I would eat dinner and then an hour or two later, I knew that I had to eat something. And I started to learn that eating at night is not good for you. It can affect your hormones, make you gain even more weight. So there were a lot of problems. And I had many strategies that I learned over the course of that time to overcome it. So I don't know if you want to ask me specifically about, I could keep going, but maybe you want to.
Yeah, no, go on, because in terms of how that, you see, because what you just described is what so many people do and don't realize that it's a habit or that it's an addiction. Because when you said it to me, I went, oh my gosh, that is so true. Because I remember doing something similar. And mine was super malt, and it's an African drink. And it's supposed to be, it's not alcoholic, but I think it's just really high in calories and I think carbs as well. But it's just wonderful. It's one of those drinks that you either love or you hate, and I love it. So I was always, every day, I'll be looking forward to having my bottle of super malt at night. And when you said it, I went, wow. That is so true. And it's interesting because each time you tell this story about the ice cream, I can't stop laughing. When you start eating it and just leave a bit at the bottom and telling yourself, well, I'm not having the whole tub. I've left some. And it's interesting how we keep lying to ourselves to carry on doing a habit we know that is not good for us. So, on that topic, based on the habits people form, how can people identify or realize that actually this is a habit and it's one that needs to stop, or it's having a negative impact? Because like you said, ice cream, a small tub, just doing it every day, once a day, is it really that bad? And when do you know it becomes a habit? So yeah, let's talk around that.
Okay, so I think the question around how do you know if it's bad, is this really a problem, whether from a health perspective or an emotional kind of psychological perspective, I have to say that, I talk to a lot of women and people know. People usually know. It's as you were saying, it's almost more like you're just kind of brushing that, you're pushing it aside. You're, well, not wanting to face the reality of the situation. But usually what happens is when people start to gain weight, or maybe they'll get a diagnosis, oh, you have pre-diabetes. That's a very common one that will trigger people saying, wait a minute, I need to stop. It also could be like, oh, now I'm 50 and I better start to change, and seeing our parents aging and that sort of thing. So usually people have an idea that it's not good in most cases. Or another situation is that I've met and worked with people who actually weren't eating sugar or any bad, so-called bad foods. They were just eating too much, and they couldn't lose weight. So it's not only about indulging in these sort of drinks or ice cream and that sort of thing. It's also about your overall health. And then there's the emotional relationship, because it's interesting that you bring this up, because the thing that really got me to want to stop was that I realized that I wasn't in control.
Wow. Yeah.
That when that hit me, I was reading a book actually, and when that hit me, I was like, I don't know why. That was just the thing that pushed me over the edge. And mind you, I knew this was years into it. I had already, like I said, I had already started making substitutions. So instead of ice cream, I was eating pretzels for a long time. That was my thing. And then I started making homemade treats and trying to just get it healthier. And so at that point, I knew it was bad. I didn't realize it was an addiction, but I knew that eating a lot of ice cream was bad for me. So that was a sort of nutritional evolution that I did, where I learned how to nourish my body properly. And I think this is useful for anybody who's listening, is if you have a bad habit, that's your brain, right? That's your brain wanting you to do X, Y, Z. But there's also a physiological, biochemical, hormonal aspect to eating that if you don't address that first, it's going to be very difficult to change that habit mentally. So what I actually ended up doing, I didn't even realize it. I look back over my history, there was a journey. The first thing I started doing was nourishing my body properly, eating more nutritious foods, making my own bread instead of buying it at the store, eating less sugar during the day. And that helped me to now make better decisions at night. Wow. And then I also learned the importance of enjoying my food. Because what happened in the middle there was all of a sudden I was obsessed with being healthy, and I was still eating at night, but I was eating homemade crackers and everything was very natural. But I was too concerned with the nutritional value and not concerned enough with the gastronomical side, the taste, the pleasure that is our birthright. We're born with our taste buds and the olfactory nerve in our nose. There's a reason that we can taste all these wonderful foods. And I believe part of it is protection, but part of it is it's pleasurable. So I forgot about that. And that was a problem. So that was a part of my journey. And then I was able to kind of start to address the mindset stuff eventually.
Right. You've really touched on an important point, which I want us to kind of dig into. So when we talk a lot about weight loss, we know how a lot of us struggle with yo-yo dieting, the diets that, the big ones, they just all sorts. What is the best way to lose weight? How can we lose weight and sustain it?
That's the $1 million question, Maureen.
Yes. We need help.
Okay, so the best way to lose weight is, first and foremost, the thing that you can actually continue doing.
What does that mean?
So that means that it nourishes your body and your mind, your soul. So, I mean, some people love French fries and ice cream and hot dogs. You may love that, but it's probably not going to help you lose weight to eat those foods all the time. So we
Yeah.
have to bring in both factors, the what's nutritious for your body and also what you enjoy. You It will not be sustainable if you don't have both of those things, because
Yeah. I agree.
when you nourish your body properly, you have better energy, you sleep better, you're in a
Yeah.
better mood. So I'm really a big fan of the flywheel, the positive reinforcement of things. So, and this is a biological thing. We have feedback loops in our bodies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like to think of it as like a positive feedback loop, which is kind of like a flywheel. I don't know if people are really familiar with the flywheel effect, but you put inputs and it just self-perpetuates. It goes faster and faster and faster. So, when you start eating better, you start feeling better, which makes you want to eat better again. So without that proper nourishment, you're just not going to get those health benefits, which aid in the weight loss process. So one could say, well, I'm just going to eat a perfect diet and I'm going to be perfect all the time. And I'm going to eat the most nutritious foods. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but it's not sustainable if you're not really looking forward to your meals, or if you feel deprived, or you feel like you're missing out on something, or you feel like, I kind of liken it to, like, I feel like I'm holding my breath. And when can this diet be over with so I can breathe again?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it's true what you said, especially about the biofeedback and the repetition, is so important, because it's the continuation, repeating it, that creates the new wiring in the brain. And I think the problem is that a lot of people don't continue till it becomes a habit, till it's fully embedded to be a habit for it to be sustained, because it's not just doing it. And I think the other thing you said, which is so important, is that emotional connection. You have to enjoy it, because if not, it almost becomes like you're doing something logically with no connection to the emotional brain. And the brain doesn't work like that. I always talk about this when we're talking about the thoughts that you have, or you're setting goals. When you set a goal that doesn't have an emotional connection, you're very likely to stop at some point and go, and just leave it and do something else. So it's interesting how, you're talking about this in terms of weight loss, because I've kind of gone on the journey of weight loss more from the point of perspective of setting goals. But hearing you say it, it just gladdens my heart, because it just means so much. And like you said, it's those two things. It's eating well, and also that connection. It has to be pleasurable. So for people that have done a lot of, done the dieting, lost the weight, put it back on, how do they start?
So I do want to talk about, I will answer that, but I also really want to talk about what you are getting at with that emotional connection. Because for me, I see it, there are three parts to this. There's the eating nutritious foods, there's taking pleasure in the eating experience and enjoying the process. And then there is what I call the mindset, which encompasses motivation, versus willpower, and having that, like you said, that emotional connection. So I want to talk about that. But to start, I always start with, like, when new clients come to me, we always start with nourishing the body properly first. And that is, so understanding, first of all, whole foods, not the store, but actually whole foods versus processed foods. Whole foods are nutritionally superior to processed foods. So even if you just looked at what you were eating and you said, okay, and this is not just for weight loss, this is for any health endeavor. What am I eating that's processed that I can eat that's less processed?
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean you go from buying bread to baking bread. That's a big step. Maybe you find a bread that has less ingredients, that's more wholesome, that you buy at the farmer's market. So the whole foods piece is a great place to start, rather than finding some fancy diet with fancy names. Forget about all that. How can I increase my whole foods in my diet? Simple.
Yeah.
And the other thing is understanding what I call the macros. Well, I don't call, everybody calls them the macros, but the macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And this is where you might find somebody who says, oh, well, the keto diet is the best, or the vegan diet is the best, or you should do low carb. No, you should count your calories. There's so much confusion around that. Yeah. Part of the reason that there's so much confusion is everybody's trying to sell their way. And part of it is that we weren't really taught to listen to our bodies. As a matter of fact, Maureen should be eating Maureen's diet. Jill should be eating Jill's diet, no one else's. And how do you do that? Well, you pay attention to how much protein, how much fat, how many carbs you're eating. And that's different for everybody. How much protein you need at breakfast is most likely not what I need at breakfast.
How will I know?
Well, I love that question, because that was the next thing I was going to say is, so we have to learn how to observe our bodies. And I have 6 factors that I recommend that people pay attention to. And I have a little document that lists this. I also have a document that talks about protein, fat, and carb foods, like fiber-rich foods. But there are 6 factors that I pay attention to. Just
before you go on, these documents, how can people get them? Do they need to, is it part of how they contact you and get them, just so that, because we're going to put details later and we're going to talk details anyway, your website and all that. So to get these documents, is it when people come to work with you, then you give them the documents to work with? Is that how it works?
No, I mean, anybody can access it. I have a page where you just click on the link and you'll get an email with the those documents. They're all come in one email.
Right. Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
So there are those 6 factors, which I can just briefly mention now. Energy, mood, mental clarity, hunger, cravings, and gastrointestinal function. If you're paying attention to those 6 things, your body is giving you lots and lots and lots of clues. And, to a certain extent, you have to be a little bit like you're a detective and kind of pay attention, not obsessing about it, but just sort of paying attention. I noticed that when I have salad without fish or some kind of, meat or protein source, I notice that I get hungry 2 hours later. I wonder what that means. Oh, maybe I need, again, this goes back to the macronutrients. Maybe I need more protein at that meal. Maybe I need more fiber. Maybe I need more fat. And so really just, again, just almost like a feedback loop, like just paying attention to, when I eat this, I feel this. When I eat that, I feel that. So if you eat and you suddenly get sluggish or tired, or your brain, you feel like you're in a cloud, that's your body sending you an email, a text message. Hey, that thing that you did was probably not the best thing for you. So maybe you should do less of it or more of it. If you a lot of times we feel good, right? We do things that feel good. And GI stuff is very important. I've met people who said, oh, I'm doing a vegan diet and I have a lot of diarrhea. Is that bad? I'm like, yeah, that's a message from your body. Don't ignore it. So that's why I call it body wisdom. Really just paying attention to what you're doing and how it's affecting you.
That's powerful though, because I think a lot of times people don't take the time to pay attention. It's that whole laziness thing about, it's work, but that's what pays off in the long run. Wow, no, thanks for that. So how do people work with you? So if someone has, wants, because the whole essence of weight loss is for it to be a lifestyle, for it to be sustainable. And the fact is that we need help. And that's the truth. Because if we try to do it ourselves most of the time, the subconscious brain that is already wired in a particular pattern will keep drawing us back to what it's familiar with. So this is why we need people like you, Jill. We need Jill. So tell us how people work with you? So when they come to you, what's the process?
So if someone thinks that they may either be able to benefit from working with me, or they just want more clarity on what would be maybe that's not the best thing for them, then we start with a phone call, which is, I don't charge for it. I call it a clarity call. And that's where I want to hear what are your goals? What are your challenges? What are the things standing in your way? And what's going to get you to move the dial in the right direction? So sometimes it's working with me. Sometimes it's not. I've had people call me and they said, what you need is actually a personal trainer right now. So the call is totally I'm in service of what's the best thing for this individual. So if it turns out that it makes sense for us to work together, then they would either most people who come to me now work in a program that I've designed. So it's a 6-month program, and each week there are things that I want them to learn and pay attention to. So we're kind of taking you through this process that I've over years of doing this, figured out that there's no one right diet for everybody. So I'm never going to say, oh, everybody eat this. It's very individualized, but the process of starting off with observing your body, observing what you're eating, and going from there, there's a very specific process that we go through.
And that's the key for it to be sustainable. It's this early stage, isn't it?
I think it's, you can start wherever you are, and no matter what, the name of my business is Work with Your Nature Weight Loss. So why is it called that? Because most diets are going against our nature.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to tap into our nature and harness it and use it to our advantage. So we know how habits are developed. That's not a mystery. So there's a certain process that we can go through to develop it. It doesn't matter if you make mistakes. If you've made 1,000 mistakes, you can always start again. That's I have the process laid out because I want it to be easier and as painless as possible. But no matter where someone is, they can always start again. And it really isn't starting again, because all the mistakes that we've made, they're helping us now to be where we are, who we are right now. And another piece about working with me that's very, very important is we do ask our clients to enter what they're eating into a diet app. That way, first of all, the client is seeing, oh, I've had people tell me, can't even tell you how many times, Maureen, I've had people say to me, oh, I'm actually eating, I thought that thing was worse than it is. So sometimes it's fun to you get more freedom. But that way they can learn about nutrition, about their bodies, about the process. And then we can be watching, because we're observing those entries and saying, okay, so how did you feel on Saturday when you had that lunch? So there's a lot of reflection. We're using that input, that data, to tweak.
That's amazing. And that's so
important,
isn't it? That is really great, because it's that awareness, paying attention, really understanding yourself. And like you said, even if you fail or it stops, you can start again, because you've already wired things in. You've already started the process. Oh, I love that. I love that, because a lot of times what a lot of us do is just jump in and start. But this process really makes it just makes it more authentic. It makes it more we are more in control of what we are doing. I love it. There's something I want to touch on before we finish. And you mentioned something about it's not good to eat late. What is late? And what should you eat? Because I'll tell you, I've heard recently where someone said that after a particular time, someone said you shouldn't eat carbs from about 5 p.m. And then I've heard somebody else say you should eat carbs at 5 p.m., but not, eat protein. Oh God, Jill. It's all over. So what does, what are we meant? I know, in fact, now that I'm saying it, I think you've actually answered it to an extent where it's really paying attention to yourself. So I'm learning. So it's actually paying attention to me and stop listening to what people are saying about eating. So you never asked a question and I've answered it. So it's working.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. I love it. It was beautiful to see that the wheels turning. Yeah. And I mean, there are certain truths about nutrition that I can say, and pretty much I have too, and I've already mentioned them. Whole foods are superior to processed foods. So favor whole foods as much as you can, and know and learn the macronutrients that are right for you. So some people, they can have oatmeal with fruit for breakfast and they feel great. But then at night, they can't, if they eat a lot of carbs, it impacts their sleep or their mood or their belly feels bloated. So it's really individual.
That's me. My belly does get bloated when I eat granola at night.
Mm-hmm. Does it happen in the morning as well? Right. Yeah.
Whoa, I love this. Yeah. Okay.
So that's a sign from your body.
Yeah.
It's your body is speaking to you. So what happens is the digestive process slows down as the day progresses. So things sit longer in the stomach and the small intestine in the evening than they do in the morning. However, the bacteria are just as excited and happy and active 24/7. So they will cause more kind of fermentation later in the day. So, you adjust accordingly. But the goal is not to limit, restrict. Oh, well, if I eat this, I feel bad and I can't eat this and I can't. And all of a sudden you can only eat 20 foods. That's not the goal. If that's the case, then you do need to work with a professional to heal the gut and work on those things, because the goal is never how restrictive can I be? No dairy, no gluten, no grains. No, I don't want anybody to live like that. The goal is let's push that to where you can eat as much variety as possible and still, be healthy and reach your goals.
I love that.
So, I can't give you like a one size fits all answer.
Which is great. Yeah.
However, there are some biological things that happen in the evening. Is rising. There are hormonal influences that really show us that we should probably start, dialing down the food consumption at least 3 hours before bedtime. And that's also shown in a lot of sleep research, which we know sleep is absolutely essential for your brain health. So that's one kind of guidepost is maybe, starting to at least give yourself 2 to 3 hours of not eating a heavy meal, I would say at the minimum.
I think that's so, I'm so glad we're doing this, because it's something that I actually started thinking about. Maybe reduce the amount of carbs that I eat at a particular, especially in the evening. Because I did notice that when I eat, for example, potato in the evening, my tummy just bloats. And the granola, those are the two that I noticed. But it's interesting because sometimes you notice this thing and just ignore it. So I love the fact that you're saying it, because the buck stops with us. It's us really learning to pay attention and knowing what to do. And this is where you come in handy, because working with you, then we can actually do it quicker, easier, and it just, understand exactly what our body is saying to us. So no, this is absolutely amazing. Jill, go on.
I'm sorry, I just want to say one thing. So motivation is very important in all of this, because if you have those negative consequences and you ignore them, that means that you're just not motivated to ignore them. So like you were saying earlier, that emotional connection, why is it important for you to feel better at night? And one thing that I can say about what you're describing is try to create those short-term wins. So I notice that when I don't eat granola and I don't eat potatoes, my belly feels flat at night. And I like that.
Yeah.
That will motivate you to now not do those things. It's a little bit harder to stop things rather than to start. Oh, that was another point I wanted to add. When you're first starting out, focus on adding rather than taking away. But in any case, it's a reinforcement, but it's a feedback loop. When I eat this, I feel bad, so I don't want to eat that anymore. And that is a motivating factor, but we want to find the positive motivators as well.
Yeah,
because it's more powerful.
Yeah, no, that's so important, because it's something I always say, that when the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between the good and bad. So if you say I don't want to, it focuses on that as if you want to, and it confirms what you want. So you're absolutely right. Gosh, yeah, I say these things. I just need to relate it to diet, to my food, to my lifestyle. Yeah, go on.
I have an example that I sometimes talk about. I worked with this client, and when we first started working together, she was eating Cheez-Its every night. Cheez-Its are like these crackery things at night. And they were on her diet, food diary. I saw it every night. I never said anything to her about it.
Yeah.
And what we did was we worked on a better breakfast, better lunch, better dinner. And after a couple of weeks, so we're adding, we're not taking away. Yes. And then after a couple of weeks, the Cheez-Its disappeared from her food diary.
She did that herself.
She did that herself. And I asked her about it, and she said, I didn't need them anymore. So that's an example of, she knew they were bad. I didn't have to tell her.
Yeah, exactly.
So just nourishing your body properly and observing, and also her will, right? That will, like she really wanted to, and she successfully lost 50 pounds, and, just an incredible journey that she was on. But that's an example of how it doesn't have to be as hard as we think it's going to be.
It doesn't have to be hard at all, and I think what you said is so true. Focusing on what you want, the gain you want, is the key, because then your brain will help you achieve that thing you want. And that's where the motivation comes from. Actually, I was going to ask you to give us a case study, which you did, someone that worked with you and you took them through the process. So you actually did that, which is absolutely fantastic. But I'm really excited just, having this conversation with you. And we could go on and on, because it's something we all need so much. But so Jill, where can people find you? So if people want to work with you or any information, I'm going to put it in the description as well. But if you just tell us where to find you, and also what you offer, what you do.
So I think the best place to start is to go to my website, which is winweightloss.com. And that's WYN for, it's kind of a funny acronym for work with your nature weight loss. So it's Win Weight Loss. And there you can learn a little bit about me and how we work. And then if you are interested in learning more, then you would book a call to speak with me. I'm also on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, and I make little videos on Instagram every week. So LinkedIn, I'm out there if you want to learn, get to know me a little bit more. I do monthly lunch and learns. So those are free, and we just do information, just talk. It's not a selling endeavor. It's just, let's talk about whatever topic we're talking about, kind of like what we're doing here.
Yeah. So if people want to join the Lunch and Learn, where would they find that? Is that from Instagram or from your website?
Probably Instagram would be the best place to find it. I have it in my profile, or I post little posts about inviting people to the upcoming ones. So we do it every month. And then when we work together, in 95% of the cases, I'm recommending that people do 6-month programs, because most of the people who come to me have a history of yo-yo dieting, and we want to stop that and really commit and change your relationship with food, and also give you time to build that body wisdom and all of that. So either people work with me one-on-one, or I have 2 nutritionists who work with me. Who basically do similar, we meet weekly and provide that accountability and checking in on the food and, hey, how's it going? How do you feel? Because it's really about how you feel.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, no, that's amazing. And it's just having someone to talk to or someone to, because there are times that it might be, just get so difficult and just having someone that you can chill, help, and that's what we need as human beings. So, no, well done what you do. So now that we're at the end, what final word of wisdom will you give our listeners? Something that they can take away and just start thinking out, start doing.
I think the concept of the flywheel or the positive feedback loop, I think is probably really, really important. That if you just can make some tiny change, rather than trying to be the perfect eater or the perfect workout person,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen. Slow, gradual change, and we know this is how we build habits too. So once you do that, you feel good and you want to do more, and then you feel good and you want to do more, and it's a self-perpetuating positive feedback loop. But if you start with doing too much, you probably will get discouraged and then give up. So little tiny wins are a great place to start. Instead of coming home and eating crackers or brownies, I'm eating carrots, and that's all I'm going to focus on for the next 2 weeks. Let's come home and eat carrots or celery or something healthy.
Yeah.
And that feels good because you're able to do it. It's doable. If you feel like something's really hard and you sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't have that same satisfaction. So just starting simple and small and give yourself those little wins to speed up that wheel and incremental progress, and then that fuels your motivation and makes you want to do, oh, maybe now I'll take a walk in the morning for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Great. That is a great place to start. 5-minute walk, low pressure, easy to start, and you feel good afterwards. You want to do it more.
Wow, wow. No, I am so challenged to start to do something now. And my biggest takeaway is that focusing on what I'm focusing on. What do I want and not what I don't want? I always say it, but it's now relating it to, my whole healthy lifestyle, what I put in my body, really focusing on what I want. I love that. I love that. And also the fact that when I notice, it's paying attention to my body as well. I think that really stood out for me because I do notice some things, but ignore them. And this has really taught me, no, don't ignore it. Pay attention to it. And it comes back to, why do I want to pay attention? Why do I want to lose weight? So yeah, no, thank you so much, Jill. And I'm going to leave Jill's details in the description. So please contact Jill. She's amazing at what she does. She truly, truly is. And this is a podcast, so we can't make this too long. If not, you can tell I will go on and on with this. So thank you so much, Jill, for coming onto the Lead to Excel podcast. It's really, really been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I really appreciated it.
Okay, 3 things before we finish today. Have you subscribed to this podcast? If you haven't, make sure you click that subscribe button wherever you listen to this podcast, because once you subscribe, you will not miss an episode. And as usual, if you have a topic you would love me to speak about or bring a guest on, do let me know by leaving a review. Finally, do have a fantastic week. And remember that you are limitless. So I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Bye for now.